never used to believe in ghosts. I used to think all the stories about vengeful spirits and restless souls were just jokes spun from fear, or worse, delusions of lonely people trying to fill the silence of the night. That was before I set foot in Adams, Tennessee. A quaint, picturesque little town, seemingly as peaceful as an old postcard, but beneath that stillness lies something ancient, something that has never rested, something that waits, silent and hungry. I lived there in early 2000 with my wife Hannah and our little daughter Sophia. She was just 4, blue eyes, blonde hair, a smile like an angel. We bought a 2-story Victorian house a few miles outside of town. Behind it stretched a patch of overgrown land leading to an abandoned farm, tangled with weeds and rotting vines. I had no idea that land once belonged to the Bell family. Nor did I know that buried beneath it was a curse that never faded. I had never heard of the Bell Witch. The name was just a whisper in the wind, a vague echo. Everything began in the 3rd week, at exactly 3 a.m. I was woken by knocking. 3 knocks, slow, steady, as if someone was rapping gently against the floor. From beneath, I brushed it off as creaking wood, maybe mice or the old furnace, but the next night it came again. This time I got up and walked slowly through the dark, and with each step I took, I heard a knock in return. Not faster, not slower. It was mimicking me. I didn't tell Hannah. She was prone to worry, and I still believed it was all in my head. Then, Sophia started to change. She stopped talking to us as much. She'd sit for hours on the living room floor, her tiny fingers pressed to the wooden boards, whispering in soft, indecipherable murmurs. At first, I thought she was pretending, just playing, but soon I realized she wasn't talking. She was listening. One night, I saw her giggle. Her eyes sparkled as if someone had just told her a magical story. But when I followed her gaze, she was staring at space. No TV, no toys, no one. I started getting worried. I installed a small camera in the living room. I needed to know what was happening at night while we slept. I placed it in the far corner, facing the rug where Sophia usually sat. And then, on the night of March 12th, I saw it. Sophia sat with her back to the camera. At 3:01 a.m., she gently knocked on the floor 3 times. And from the corner of the screen, out of the darkness, a figure appeared. A woman, tall and thin, dressed in a long black gown. Her hair is white as ash, but she had no head. I froze. I played the footage again and again. The figure was still there, not a trick of the light, not a dream. She walked towards Sophia. No face, no mouth, and yet, it looked like she was whispering something. I ran to Sophia's room. She was asleep, breathing softly, but on the floor was a crayon drawing. A headless woman holding hands with a little blonde girl. Underneath it, in shaky handwriting, "I'll help her remember." I started researching the town's history. I found Wallace Griggs, a local historian who lived near the old cemetery. When I showed him the drawing, his face turned pale. His hands trembled as he said, "That's Kate Batts. She was accused of witchcraft. They beheaded her, and the head was never found." He told me that ever since her death, the land around here had never known peace. The Bell Witch legend came from her, not just because she was murdered, but because she was forgotten. She never left, he said. Every generation, a child hears her voice. The curse isn't death. It's a memory that was never told. I checked the camera again. Each night, thin wisps of smoke curled around Sophia's head. And one night, in a dim, flickering frame, the woman's face began to appear. Incomplete, like it was reconstructing itself from broken memories. She smiled, a crooked, horrible smile, and blood began to pour from her neck, soaking her dress. It wasn't just Sophia. I started hearing whispers everywhere in the house, in the bathroom, inside closets, from the attic, and worse, from beneath the floor. I decided to clean out the basement. Behind an old shelf, I found a sealed wooden box. Inside, a stained scrap of parchment, a silver hairpin, and a small cloth soaked in dried blood. The parchment read in scratchy handwriting, "She was silenced not by death but by fear. Bring voice to her pain." I called Wallace again. He guided me through an old ritual. A circle of salt. Sophia's drawing is at the center. 3 knocks. Call her name. I followed the instructions. The air turned ice cold. Walls cracked, lights flickered, and inside the circle, Kate Batts appeared, headless, in a black dress, silver hair falling like frozen blood. I called her name, over and over, in every voice I could muster. Smoke surrounded me, thick, suffocating, and then suffocating, and then a head fell into the circle. Not hers, mine. I woke up the next morning. I was still alive, but Hannah and Sophia were gone. No sign, no trace, just a trail of blood leading from the living room down into the basement. On the wall, a new painting. In blood. The headless woman, standing alone. No Sophia beside her anymore. After they disappeared, I was no longer myself. I moved like a ghost, barely breathing, barely human. The police searched the house. They found no sign of forced entry, no sign of abduction, no foreign DNA. Nothing. Only the blood, and a child's drawing painted in it. One officer asked me, "Are you sure you didn't imagine it? Maybe you're hiding something?" I don't blame them. If I were them, I'd think the same. Because who believes in headless witches in this day and age? But every time I close my eyes, I see Sophia's face. No, not the whole face. Just her eyes, blue, lost, floating in black mist. I left Adams and moved to Colorado. I rented a small cabin in the woods, no neighbors, no cell service, no internet. I thought, if I got far enough, if I cut myself off completely, maybe it wouldn't follow me. I was wrong. The first night in the cabin, I woke up to a knocking on the floor. 3 knocks, slow, precise, not a second off, impossible. The cabin floor was stone, no basement, just cold, hard ground underneath. But I heard it, and this time after each knock came a whisper. Not words, not sound, but a feeling. As if something was crawling into my heart, planting memories I never had. I started dreaming. But the dreams weren't mine. I saw myself in a dress, standing in a wheat field. A horse screamed behind me. A man's hand clutched my throat. I screamed, but no one came. I was dragged through thorns. I clawed at the dirt, trying to escape. Then, the blade. I saw my head fall into the field, still conscious, still watching, still hating. When I woke, my neck throbbed like it had been cut. My pillow was soaked in cold sweat, and beside it was the same old silver hairpin I saw in the wooden box. I left everything behind, or maybe it never left me. How I went to the local library and searched for everything I could find on Kate Batts, and there, buried in old crumbling archives, I found something that shattered me. A forgotten statement from a 4-year-old girl named Sarah McAllister, dated 1880. Sarah lived next to the Bell family. In her words, Sarah said, every night she heard a woman whispering beneath the floorboards, telling her sad stories, broken memories of death, betrayal, and being forgotten. She said she doesn't have a head, but she still remembers. She told me to remember for her. Disappeared 2 weeks later, no trace, no body. She just had one drawing left in her home, the headless woman standing beside a blonde-haired little girl, identical to Sophia's drawing. That's when I realized that no one was killed, no one was kidnapped. They were kept to remember, to be vessels of her pain, because Kate's spirit can't move on without someone carrying her memory. And to survive, she must live in the minds of others, especially children. Minds soft, open, easy to shape, easy to control. But as they grow, the memories fade, and she must find a new child. A cycle, a loop of living memory. I don't know why I survived. Maybe because I never truly believed until it was too late. But one thing I know for sure. I still hear the knocking, no matter where I go, even if I plug my ears, blast music, take pills, it still knocks. And every time, I remember a little more. A dream, a whisper, a lullaby in a voice I don't know. I'm becoming her vessel, a living memory, a cursed keeper. If you ever hear knocking beneath your floor, don't try to explain it, don't turn around, and never, ever let your child sit alone on the floor, whispering into space. Because one day, they'll start to draw, and you won't be able to erase it. Not ever.